Hello, welcome to Granada Reports. We're live with the latest across the northwest.
Yes, hello on the programme this evening.
There's been an explosion.
Explosion, yeah, big explosion. I'm with a man now that's really injured.
The frantic 999 call just seconds after the arena bombing, how a member of the public tried to help care worker John Atkinson. The inquiry hears he may have lived if paramedics had got there sooner.
The dilemma of eating or heating. We talk to people said to lose out as a £20 universal credit uplift comes to an end.
You don't know what's going on, you don't know where your next meal's coming from, you don't know if you can afford to have the heating on.
What a waste. Tips to avoid throwing so much of the food we buy straight in the bin.
Going for a paddle, the Rugby League legends taking to the water to help a former rival.
And average temperatures across the region today, but really quite mild air seeping in over the next 36 hours or so. All the detail a little later on.
First, those desperate efforts by a member of the public to keep a care worker alive after the arena bombing.
The public inquiry into the attacker, John Atkinson from Bury, had multiple injuries. He was only 6 metres away from the explosion, which killed 22 people.
A man who was at the arena to collect his daughter tried to help by using his wife's belt as a tourniquet. He reassured John, telling him ambulances were on their way. Experts told the hearing there was a chance he could have survived if help had arrived in time.
Our correspondent Amy Welch has this report.
John Atkinson was described by his family as caring and clever. He spent his life helping others, and yet in his final moments he didn't get the medical help he needed to survive.
There is an issue of survivability for John Atkinson, and the experts have provided an opinion that timely medical intervention, the application of effective bilateral tourniquets, could have made a material difference for John.
Within seconds of the blast, a member of the public was at John's side and had dialed 999.
There's been an explosion.
Explosion, yeah, big explosion. I'm with a man now that's really injured.
And yet it was another 47 minutes before he was seen by a paramedic. Ronald Blake was at the concert collecting his daughter and didn't have any first aid training, but used his wife's belt to wrap a tourniquet round John's leg, which he held in place for nearly an hour.
Saw where he was bleeding from and put the belt round above that and just wrapped it round and pulled it as tight as possible.
Have you ever seen a tourniquet ever used by anybody?
Just like everybody else on telly.
John was still breathing, and police officers tried their best to keep him awake.
John says, "I'm gonna die." PC Meany says to John, "You're not. What I need you to do is keep breathing for me. The ambulances are on their way, and they will be coming. They're not that far off, and there are plenty of them coming in now."
But by the time ambulances arrived, it was too late. The inquiry heard how John was moved onto a board which started to break, and that when police asked paramedics for a stretcher, they were fobbed off.
I remember feeling that I was ignored by paramedics in the casualty clearing area.
A metal barrier was used to carry John down the stairs. It takes 7 minutes and he nearly falls off.
They were conscious, awake, talking. Just went more quiet at times. But I just kept saying, "Talk to me."
And while the heroics of men like Ronald Blake have been praised by the family of John Atkinson, the ambulance service still have questions to answer over whether he might have been saved.
And Amy's outside Manchester Arena for us this evening. Amy, difficult evidence to listen to, and we're going to hear more about John Atkinson tomorrow.
That's right. Tomorrow we'll start to hear from members of the ambulance service over the medical care that was given to John Atkinson, and next week we'll hear from medical experts over whether he might have survived had that medical care been different. Now, this chapter of evidence regarding the family's loved ones' final moments has been so difficult for them to hear, but that evidence has usually only taken a few hours, in part, sadly, because their victims couldn't have survived. But in the case of Safi Rose Roussos, the youngest first victim of this attack and John Atkinson. We know that is not the case. There is already medical evidence to suggest that had their treatment been better or quicker, they may still be here, and that is why this inquiry is allowing at least 4 or 5 days to listen to what the witnesses and the experts have to say about each of those individuals. It will ultimately be for the inquiry chairman to make that decision, and it will understandably be heartbreaking for the families to hear.
OK, Amy in Manchester, thank you. Next tonight, warnings our poorest households will face the choice of heating or eating this winter as the £20 uplift to universal credit comes to an end. It means people who claim the benefit will be £80 a month worse off.
The government says that extra money was only ever a temporary measure to help the most vulnerable through the pandemic. Now it says the recovering economy will help people back into work.
Our correspondent Anne O'Connor has been speaking to some of those who from today will find themselves worse off.
In Liverpool, Joanne and Marshall have been struggling since he lost his job in lockdown. Thousands in rent arrears, their £80 a month universal credit uplift had been a lifeline.
Literally cut back as much as we could. It was come between like food, gas, electric. Obviously, them prices are all gone dead sky high now as well.
My dream would be to make my business happen, and I want to be able to help others.
Fellow Liverpudlian Amy Frost wants to breathe new life into old furniture, but the cut to her benefit makes her own life a daily challenge.
As soon as I wake up, I realise that I'm living in the deficit, and I have to contemplate building a day of work around what meals I can afford to have that day, and you have to choose between buying milk and bread or going on a bus.
The government says it can't continue the £6 billion a year subsidy of low pay. Employers should step up.
But we couldn't expect to continue at the same level as the emergency state support, £400 billion in total, that we went through the pandemic. That's unsustainable. So we do need to come off that and transition. But the support is there, whether it's people getting into work or the most vulnerable in our communities.
The debate is heated, as Good Morning Britain found, with a former Tory MP and a former footballer turned hotelier.
Honestly, to remove universal credit payments at this moment in time is brutal.
OK,
let's be clear.
Why don't you go and recruit those people and help them and make sure that they have the money that they can earn? There's nothing better than knowing that you've earned the money to put the food on the table.
Get her in my hotel this afternoon. She can come this afternoon.
Yeah, do a shift, Edwina. Get a job.
There are more women on universal credit than men. Campaigners like the women's organisation in Liverpool believe the cut removes what is a shelter from the storm of bringing up children on low income.
I think the effect will be catastrophic. We are at risk, and a real risk, of creating a pandemic of poverty, where women and families are simply left practically destitute.
Maggie agrees pay should increase, but the benefit should remain during the months that takes to happen. Anne O'Connor, ITV News, Liverpool.
Well, our political correspondent Leisha Manali is here with us in the studio. Now, Leisha, Boris Johnson delivered his keynote speech to the Conservative Party conference today. So was there anything for people who are losing this £80 a month?
Well, I think the short answer to that, Lucy, is probably no. This was a speech very much focused on the Prime Minister's long-term vision for the future rather than the issues of the present, how he wants to transition the UK into a high-wage economy. Be it admitted, there could be difficult times ahead before we get there, and that hasn't gone down well with everybody. Labour hired this van to drive around the party conference venue in protest at the universal credit uplift being taken away. And even within the party, there were those who were uncomfortable with this decision.
There's a lot of people are going to lose money. £6 billion is going to be lost from people's pockets. I think that is an awkward backdrop. As a Conservative councillor, I'm ashamed about that. But I think Boris is doing, aside from that, he's doing an excellent job throughout the pandemic, focusing on the NHS, supporting people really, and there are other schemes coming into force.
So, Leisha, I think you counted the Prime Minister mentioned levelling up. Was it 16 times during his speech? Were there any signs, though, of any policies?
Well, Andy, I think what we saw today was a little bit of a shift in what the Prime Minister perceives levelling up to be. It's less about the north-south divide, more about people than places.
We're announcing today a levelling up premium of up to £3,000 to send the best maths and science teachers to the places that need them most. And above all, we are investing... We're investing in our skills. Skills, folks. And to level up, you need to give people the options, the skills that are right for them.
So that was any major new policy announcement today, in perhaps typical Boris Johnson fashion. It was very heavy on optimism, perhaps a little light on policy, though that's not too unusual for a party with such a heavy majority this far away from a general election, where party conference is more about getting the team together than about those ironing out those details. He did go down very well with those who came to listen to him this morning.
It's like a rock star, actually. I arrived here at 9:10 this morning and just got in. So that gives you an idea of the absolute amazing pull, if you like, of the speaker. And I think he is such a great one at infusing the audience and making sure that we're on message, if you like, now as well, and we have clear ideas about the future.
It shouldn't be that the life expectancy of somebody living in central Warrington is 7 years shorter than somebody living in a leafy area of Cheshire. Now, we've got to tackle that, and I think the Prime Minister set out today a very clear plan to really put emphasis on that and work on that.
Though what we didn't hear much of today was details on what many have thought the levelling up agenda to actually be about, and that's infrastructure. Despite hints from the Prime Minister that there would be a major northern transport announcement today, all we got for the north on that were these words: "We will do Northern Powerhouse Rail." And if you think that sounds familiar, you're absolutely right, because he said exactly the same thing in the same spot 2 years ago in his party conference speech in 2019. So we've got still no date for Northern Powerhouse Rail and no details of what that route might be for this particular levelling up promise. We're just going to have to wait.
Yeah, watch this space again. Leisha, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let's have some other news this evening now. And a 21-year-old man is in hospital with serious injuries after being attacked by a gang armed with machetes in Rochdale. Police were called to reports of a crash and assault on Bentley Street last night. The man was found at the scene. No arrests have been made.
It's been revealed more than half of women on Merseyside feel unsafe using public transport at night. That's according to the survey by the Police and Crime Commissioner, a survey carried out in the wake of Sarah Everard's murder. Liverpool City Council's allocating almost £270,000 to making women feel safer on the network.
And Manchester City Council has elected its first woman leader. Bev Craig says she's going to focus on improving health, affordable housing and equality. Councillor Craig will succeed Sir Richard Leese, who will stand down in December.
Well, there's lots still to come on the programme coming up.
Fit for a King, celebrating 100 years of one of our region's best-known buildings, Manchester's Royal Exchange Theatre.
And average temperatures across the region today, but feeling much better with a decent dose of blue sky. Maybe even warmer tomorrow, but maybe not so much sunshine. Full forecast a little later on.
Loving that blue sky. And let's take a look at what's coming up in the ITV News at 6:30 with Mary.
Coming up in the programme, Boris Johnson tells his party change is long overdue as he promises to level up the UK. But there is no mention of the universal credit cut as the Prime Minister addresses supporters in Manchester. Saved by seconds, the two men who avoided disaster as glass rained down outside their home. And we all know T-Rex now meets his rather smaller, distant cousin. Well, do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Yeah, great, those mini dinosaurs. Well, next, in less than a month now, politicians and scientists from all around the world are meeting in the UK for the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP26.
Yeah, many view it as the last chance for government to come together and try to prevent the worst effects of global warming.
In the latest of his special features, ITV weather presenter Alex Beresford looks at some simple changes we can all make to help save the planet.
So last week I met the Hall family, who learned about how they can reduce their family's carbon footprint.
And what we learned is one of the easiest and most tangible things that you can do is reduce your food waste. So I've come here today to get some help with my shopping. Liam is from the environmental charity Hubbub and works to reduce people's food waste. He's going to show me how I can do the same.
The average UK family wastes about £730 a year of food straight into the bin. If you plan your meals that you're going to have for the week, it means that you only buy food that you need, and it means your food will stretch further. Most people avoid it because it can be a bit boring, but if you make it fun, involve the family, think about foods that you look forward to eating, then you know that actually that's fine, I know exactly what I'm having and when.
So what would be your top tips for reducing food waste?
So if you're shopping, I would say only buy the things that you need. Look around, you might be tempted to buy a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-2 deal, but if you're not actually going to eat it, stick to your list. Fridges should be between 3 and 5 degrees, and a lot of fridges are slightly too warm, and it means that your food will go off sooner. You can buy Tupperware, you can seal your food to keep it fresh for longer. So if you've opened bacon on a Monday, by Friday it's gone. And use your freezer. There's lots of ways that you can just stop that food from even touching the bin.
So yeah, what kind of choices should I be making in this aisle?
You are my best friend and we've got some things to do.
Now to put the theory into practice. The average UK household wastes around £60 worth of food a month. At least 1/3 of all food produced globally is never eaten. And every year, wasted food in the UK represents 14 million tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions. That's the same as those created by 7 million cars. And avoiding food waste isn't just about the individual. The community fridge network redistributes tons of food every year that would otherwise simply go to waste. The aim is to share surplus stock and bring people together. The Rainbow Surprise Community Fridge in Crumpsall in North Manchester collects excess food from local supermarkets 6 days a week for others to have for free.
There's no referral. People can just walk in to the centre of the street and just say, look, can we have a look at your community fridge that we've heard about it? And then they can come and they can help themselves. They can pay as they feel if they can afford anything. However, that's not expected from anybody. They can come and have a look what we have in stock and they can just take what they need.
So whether you want to be part of a community project or you want to cut down on your waste at home, simple tips like planning your meals and making a shopping list can help stop those impulse buys, meaning you waste less food and less money.
Yeah, don't do what I do, which is make the shopping list and then lose the shopping list.
Oh no, that's definitely not a good idea. Right, next we're going to move on to the Rugby League legends, putting old rivalries to one side to help fight motor neuron disease.
Yeah, once again, this is a group of people inspired by the incredible bravery of Rob Burrow and his family as he adjusts to life with MND. The team includes players who used to be with Wigan, St Helens and Warrington, and they're raising money by canoeing down the Leeds-Liverpool Canal.
Our sports correspondent Chris Hall caught up with some of them for a quick talk on the towpath.
Rugby League is built on rivalries, but when one of their own falls on hard times, all players are willing to stick their oar in. So this week they're in canoes on canals in support of Leeds legend Rob Burrow, who's living with motor neuron disease.
Well, everybody's jumping on board and wanting to make a difference, not for themselves but for Rob, for MND. It's 25 miles a day, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but the logistics of getting through locks, of getting through bridges.
Probably the most difficult part is picking the boats out of the water on the locks. Trying to carry a 110k canoe up the steps at the side of it is a little bit more challenging than I thought. You know, this has been quite challenging at times with the weather yesterday in particular, getting out on the boats and rowing, but it's nothing in comparison to the fight that it is against motor neurons.
Row for Rob is not exclusively that. It's for anyone touched by the disease. Ex-Warrington player and coach Paul Cullen has already lost 2 of his old teammates to MND.
We went through the situation with, our good friend and captain Mike Gregory at Warrington, and then we went through it again with my best mate Paul Derbyshire. The cause is not lost on any of us. I'm in with Phil Clark Wigan, I'm in with Dennis Betts Wigan, I'm in with Joe Lydon Wigan. The Warrington-Wigan thing just keeps popping back up on this stretch, so they're old rivalries. They were fierce. They were absolutely brutal at times, and today we've just cracked on like good old mates.
What tips will you give to them?
Try and go downhill.
This is not a gentle paddle. This is 100 miles from Leeds to Wigan, in the wind, in the rain, sometimes even in the dark. And it's all to deliver this, the match ball for Saturday's Super League Grand Final.
We've got a team arriving by jet plane in the Catalan Dragons and the match ball arriving by canal boats. Mike Gregory, who was a Warrington and former Great Britain captain who I went on tour with, who was a fantastic inspiration and leader and role model for me. So I want to try and do my best that we prevent rugby players and the wider population in the future, Chris, from suffering with motor neurons disease.
Inspired by Kevin Sinfield's 7 marathons in 7 days, they hope to raise £7,777 for the MND Association and for the number 7, whose appearance at Old Trafford on Saturday is bound to inspire St Helens and Catalan to a thrilling performance, as long as his friends can get the ball there on time. Chris Hall, ITV News, Accrington.
Yeah, well done to all of them.
Yeah, now one of the Northwest's best-loved buildings is marking 100 years since it was officially opened by the then King.
Yeah, Manchester's Royal Exchange was originally, of course, the trading hub for the cotton industry. These days it's home to businesses of all kinds, as well as a centre for the arts.
Our correspondent Rob Smith met some of those whose lives intertwine with the Exchange's history.
If its stones could speak, they'd tell of times bright and dark spanning more than a century. Manchester's Royal Exchange is part theatre, part shops, part offices, all Mancunian history. When it was officially opened by King George V in 1921, it was the trading exchange for the city's cotton industry. And by then, an exchange had already stood on the same spot in various guises for 112 years. Today's traders take a different form, but all sense the stories this landmark could tell, including one famous cafe owner.
It does feel sort of, when you're here, especially because we're on the ground floor of the restaurant here in the tea shop. Then when you go downstairs, that's the restaurant. And down there just feels like there's ghosts, you know? They're really friendly ones. But you can just feel that people have been here and things have happened here that were before you were born.
The King and Queen inspect damage in Manchester. The Royal Exchange is but one of the well-known buildings to suffer.
The Exchange has been repaired, reshaped more than once after the air raids of World War II. After the IRA bomb attack in 1996. Sarah Usher worked on her parents' long-running jewellery stall in the basement market. The stall became a shop after the bombing. It's still in the family today.
We closed for that time. It was a traumatic time, but being in the basement then really wasn't the same. A lot of people had relocated. So then we decided to come up to the ground floor. Really, since 96, I think, there's been a massive regeneration of the building. It's always had a lively vibe, so although it's an old building, I don't think in any ways it's stuffy. I think there's a great vibe here.
Hey, Masterson, my man.
The arts are a huge part of that vibe. The theatre at the building's heart marks it out from so many across the Northwest and beyond. Tim White manages this place day in, day out. He believes he's the custodian of something special for future generations.
I've only got a small part to play in its history, but I do. While I'm here, I feel very lucky. Manchester is the Royal Exchange, you know. There's not many other iconic buildings have the same stature as this place. You see buildings go up in Manchester, and the new ones, they have the place. But the architecture, the feeling about the place, the tenants we have in, just makes it a lovely place to come in and work.
A place of work and play for 100 years and counting. Rob Smith, ITV News, Manchester.
Yeah, love that place. Now the weather with Kerry.
That sunshine really made your eyeshadow pop, you know? And you put the wipe in the bin, not the toilet.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Go ahead, Queen.
Hello, good evening. It was a better day overall today, although a little bit of cloud around later on this afternoon. Many of you getting the best of those blue skies across the northwest earlier on today. A big thank you to Elizabeth Anker for showing this shot, and also to Karen Watts for this shot. Now, as we head into the next couple of days, some pretty warm air for the time of year seeping in from tonight. Variable amounts of cloud for Thursday and Friday, and then an improving story into the weekend in that Sunday at this stage looks better than Saturday. We've got low pressure to the northwest, high pressure to the southeast, feeding in that warm air from the southwest, but also there's this lingering front that's trying to push its way through very slowly over the next few days. Overnight tonight then, cloudy skies, outbreaks of showery rain and drizzle, and some mist and murk and hill fog developing, especially into the second half of the night. So a cloudy night, a mild night, temperatures if anything rising as the night wears on. Most of those winds fairly light, but still gusty and blustery for the Isle of Man. This was the Isle of Man first thing this morning. A big thank you to Susie for the shot, 7:23 and 6:34. So as we head into tomorrow, quite cloudy across most parts of the region. The risk of some heavy showery outbreaks of rain for the Isle of Man, possibly into Cumbria. Elsewhere, the low cloud will very slowly lift and thin, but a lot of cloud around. Mild conditions, a 19 or 20 for the likes of Manchester. The average is around 16. This front is really trying to push its way south, but doesn't really make any headway. So a misty, murky start on Friday, better for the afternoon, still mild. It does push through on Saturday, clearer and colder for Sunday.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Those eyebrows are unreal.
And if you were caught in massive tailbacks on the M6 in rush hour this morning, you can blame a lorry load of potato waffles. They caught fire around breakfast time, when else, near Warrington, and delays have continued throughout the day.
Yeah, the good news is no one was hurt. So you probably think we can stop waffling on about it now.
Good idea.
Sorry.
That's it for tomorrow, though. Brian Robson's here, the footballer who broke the British transfer record when he signed for Manchester United. Thanks very much for watching. Good night.
Bye-bye.